You're really going to let them lose the house?" I looked straight at my sister, the one who inherited everything, who's never paid a single bill, and replied calmly, "I'm not letting anything happen. They chose this." My words weren't cruel. They were clarity. Clarity that came after years of silence, after countless sleepless nights over debts that were never mine, after every time I patched up that crumbling house with pieces of my youth, only to have my name erased from the will. I used to be the daughter who always came back, but this time I walked away and didn't look back. This is the story of Claire, a daughter who gave everything for her family, until she realized that love and loyalty can't survive when only one side is giving a brave journey of letting go, of healing, and of finally choosing herself. If you've ever felt overlooked despite sacrificing too much, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, share, to spread the message, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next powerful story. And now let's begin the journey called "I'm No Longer the One Holding This Family Together." I used to believe that dedication would eventually be rewarded. That was until the day I opened that old folder. That afternoon, like every weekend, I stopped by my parents' house in Brookfield, Illinois. My mother, Elaine, never quite got the hang of computers or phones, so I often helped her check bills, organize tax documents, and scan important papers. That red brick 2-story house, which I had spent nearly a decade financially supporting and slowly renovating, had gradually become my second home. "Can you take a look at this for me?" my mom said, handing me a messy stack of papers before heading to the backyard to tend to her dahlias. I sat down at the dining table and started sorting through the pile until my eyes landed on a thick, cream-colored envelope prominently labeled in bold, "Estate Plan" and "Will." I hesitated, not out of curiosity, or at least that's what I told myself, but because I wanted to make sure everything was still in order. I had always been the one to worry about these things, the one holding the family together. But when I flipped to the asset distribution page, my chest tightened. Everything, and I mean everything, my parents owned. The house over $450,000 in the bank. The newly purchased SUV, even my mother's wedding ring, was clearly listed as going to Emily, my younger sister. And me? Just a single vague line. "We love both our daughters." I clenched the paper so hard my knuckles turned white. Memories came rushing back like icy blades, the years of juggling 2 jobs to help pay off the mortgage, the countless overnight drives to bring medicine during snowstorms or climbing up the roof to replace broken shingles. All of it suddenly felt meaningless in the face of a cold line of printed text. I heard the door creak open and my mother's gentle footsteps behind me. "Claire, did you find the bank statement?" I stood up, the will still in my hand. My voice was calm, eerily calm. "Mom, is this real?" She froze her eyes, darting toward the document I was holding. "Ah, Claire, that," she stammered. "What about it?" I cut in, my voice trembling, but each word like a blade. "I've taken care of you both my whole life, and this is how I'm treated. Like I never existed." My father. Howard came out of the living room just then, holding a cup of coffee. He placed it on the table and sighed as if preparing to talk about the weather. There's no need for such a strong reaction. "Claire, you're doing fine. Emily's still trying to figure things out." I let out a bitter laugh, dry, emotionless. "Figure things out, she's 30. She changes jobs every 3 months, lives off social media videos, and can't even pay her own phone bill. I'm the one who paid off this house for the past 3 years. I fixed the roof last winter. I'm the one who kept this place from falling apart dollar by dollar." My mom stepped closer, placing her hand gently over mine as if to soothe me. "Don't think too much. I just wanted your sister to feel more secure." I pulled my hand away, nodded slightly, my eyes cold as ice secure. "What about me? The only one who's kept this home standing all these years." They said nothing. I placed the will back on the table as if handing over a declaration of war. "Thanks for showing me where I truly stand. I turned and walked toward the door. No one called me back, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel hurt. I just felt empty, a silent emptiness chilling to the bone. Since that day, I haven't returned to that house once. 2 weeks passed in silence, no calls, no messages. As if I never existed in their world, I told myself if they had any conscience left, they'd reach out. But instead of an apology or an explanation, what I got was a text from my father. "Claire, this month's payment is coming up. Please transfer the money soon. Deadline is Friday." I sat frozen staring at the words. Part of me wanted to laugh. No mention of the will. No concern for how I was doing. Just a request cold like I was the family's default ATM. I typed my reply, each word like a shard of ice. I think Emily can handle it. After all, the house is hers now, isn't it? Then I put the phone down, not waiting for a response. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up again. This time it was a message from my mother. "Claire, don't be like this. We need to talk." I didn't reply. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just a ruthless clarity that had replaced every last bit of fragile hope I once held. I was wrong to think that if I kept giving, I would eventually be appreciated. And now I no longer have any interest in playing the savior. 3 days later, the next message came from Emily. "You're overreacting. Mom and Dad didn't mean it that way. You've always been independent, but I can't be." You know that I typed each word slowly, every sentence peeling away the false front. My sister tried to hide behind "fine." Then prove you deserve what you've been given. Start by paying the mortgage. No reply. A week passed in silence, until one Monday morning, while I was having coffee in the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A transfer request from my mother Elaine for exactly $2,900, no message, just a cold mechanical action. Like the way they had cut me out of their lives, I hit decline without hesitation. A few minutes later, the phone rang. "Mom." I let it ring until the 4th chime before rejecting the call. Moments later, a text came in. "Claire, I know you saw it. Why did you refuse?" I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, then replied, "Because it's no longer my responsibility. Ask Emily." For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. I was no longer the one scrambling to patch up cracks I didn't cause. No longer the one sacrificing my youth to cover others' failures. 3 days later, Emily messaged again. "You're so selfish. Didn't you always say, 'Family comes first'?" I read that line over and over. Family. The family she was talking about was the one that treated me like an outsider. A walking wallet, I replied with just one sentence. Family means fairness and respect, not using someone until there's nothing left. After that, there were no more messages. Silence fell over everything. But this time, it didn't make me feel lonely. It brought relief. A release from the burden I'd carried on my shoulders for far too long. Still deep down, I knew the silence was only the beginning, because they would come back when there's no one else left to lean on, when the house faces foreclosure, when Emily, even after inheriting everything, still can't figure out how to pay a bill on time. And when that time comes, I'll be ready, not to save them, but to prove that I am no longer the one who suffers in silence. The next message from Emily came just before midnight, while I was reading a historical novel and sipping hot tea. The phone lit up. I didn't even have to open it to know what it said. "You're making too big a deal out of this. Everyone's stressed. Why do you have to be dramatic now? It's just a few bills. You've always handled them." I let out a dry laugh. "Just a few bills, easy to say, when you've never paid a single one in your life," I replied. "I'm not being dramatic, I'm being clear, and you'd better get used to that." Less than a minute later, she fired back. "You really are selfish. Don't be surprised if Mom and Dad don't forgive you." I put the phone down. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I wasn't tormented by the question, "Are they mad at me?" or haunted by the need to be the good daughter. I had crossed a line, the line between being used and standing up for myself. The next morning, I called the bank and requested my name be removed from the joint mortgage account. Then I contacted the utility companies and canceled all the automatic payments I had silently been covering for years. I deleted every payment reminder from my phone like a small ritual, marking the end of my role in that house. That evening, I tidied up my little apartment, played my favorite playlist, and bought myself a chocolate cake I'd always loved but never dared to buy, because the money always had to go to something more necessary. I started sleeping well. No more waking up in a panic over bill notifications. I went to work without feeling like I was carrying 3 other adults on my back. I even signed up for an online art class, something I dreamed of for years but always put off because I had no time or wasn't allowed to be selfish. And just when life began to breathe on its own again, the knocks from the past returned louder. This time. Early the next week, my mother Elaine called again. I didn't answer. Right after that, another message came in. "Claire, we need to talk. Emily doesn't know how to pay the internet bill. Can you help?" I didn't respond. 2 days later, another message. "The landline has been disconnected. She says she can't log into the account. I don't know what to do." I read it, then walked over to the bookshelf and pulled out an old notebook where I had once recorded every password payment schedule and customer service number. All these years, whenever my parents got confused, they called me. Whenever Emily forgot to pay a bill, I was the one to sort it out. But this time was different. I closed the notebook and put it back on the shelf. I was no longer their personal assistant, no longer the silent pillar of a system that pushed me aside the moment I stopped being useful. 3 days later, my inbox lit up with another message from Emily. "Are you kidding me? The house is about to lose power. Do you really want that to happen to everyone?" I replied with just one line. "No, I'm just letting everyone take responsibility for their own choices." Then silence. I heard nothing else for several days, until one morning the phone rang an unknown number. "Hi, Claire. It's me." Mrs. Patterson said a familiar voice. She was the neighbor who'd lived next door to my parents in Edison Hills for the past 2 decades. "Your mother asked if I knew anyone looking to buy a house. I think they're not managing anymore." I thanked her and hung up. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't find it funny. I just sat quietly by the window, sunlight filtering softly through the yard trees. And then I realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't suffocating under the weight of responsibility or guilt. I had chosen to step out of the cycle, and I wasn't going back. That Monday morning, a message came from someone I didn't expect. "Claire, are your parents?" Okay, it was Mr. Halston, the neighbor across the street. "Your mom, Mrs. Elaine, asked me what day it was yesterday. She just got a foreclosure notice from the bank." I stared at the screen. So what I had feared had become reality faster than I expected. It had only been 4 weeks since I stopped helping. 4 weeks was all it took for the house I had maintained, dollar by dollar, to begin crumbling. An hour later, my mom called. I didn't answer. The next message came quickly after Claire. "Please, it's serious now. We really need you." I read it and set the phone down as if it had nothing to do with me. But inside, I felt heavy. I used to think this moment would bring me some satisfaction, but it didn't. Only a tired emptiness remained, like I had grown too used to cleaning up other people's messes. I didn't reply. 2 days later, for the first time in weeks, Emily showed up at my door. She stood there in a wrinkled hoodie face, bare of makeup, clutching a messy stack of papers. Her eyes gave away her panic. "Just 5 minutes," she panted. "Just 5 minutes, Claire." I crossed my arms, standing in the doorway. There was no trace of sympathy in my eyes. "Here to ask for money again." "It's not money," she stammered, voice trembling. I need you to help talk to the bank. I don't understand what they're saying. I'm overwhelmed. Where's the inheritance you got?" I asked, my tone casual, like talking about the weather. Emily looked down and mumbled, "It's in an investment account. Withdrawing now comes with penalties. I didn't think things would spiral this fast. I raised an eyebrow. And yet you didn't hesitate when signing those documents. Mom and Dad said everything was taken care of. I thought it was all settled. Thought, there it is again. I said each word like a stone in the silence. Just like always, you never really think. Emily said nothing more. I stepped outside, gently pulling the door closed behind me. This is the lesson you need. Everyone falls sometimes, but no one grows if there's always someone there to catch them. You're really going to let them lose the house, she whispered. I'm not letting anything happen. They chose this path themselves. I turned away, leaving Emily alone in the quiet hallway of my apartment building. 3 days later, I ran into Dylan, an old classmate, who's now a real estate agent at a local arts center event. I had just started telling him about my new photography project when he cut in, eyes wide. Hey, is your parents' house on Grandview Avenue? I nodded. Someone in my team said it's being sold urgently. Old place possibly headed for foreclosure. Are you okay? I gave a faint smile. I'm fine. They're the ones who aren't. Dylan looked like he wanted to say more, but stayed silent. That evening, I went home, made myself a cup of hot cocoa, put on some soft jazz, and opened my laptop. There it was, an email from the legal aid group I had volunteered with back in college. They were looking for someone to lead a new program helping seniors manage home debt. I stared at the screen for a long while. Not for my mother, not for Emily, but for me, the person who had finally learned how to let go. 4. Hey, is your parents' house on Linden Avenue? Dylan asked, his eyes filled with surprise. I nodded. Someone in my group mentioned them, said they're trying to sell urgently. The house is old and the bank debt is piling up. Are you okay? I gave a faint smile, just enough to be polite. I'm fine. As for them, probably not Dylan. Looked like he wanted to say more, but he fell silent. That evening, I opened my laptop. In my inbox was an email from a nonprofit legal organization I had worked with during college. They were looking for a counselor for a new program, helping seniors manage home debt and family finances. I stared at the screen for a while, then smiled gently. Life is strange sometimes. It circles right back to where you began. I sat still for a long time, then began filling out the application. Not for my parents, not for Emily, but for me, the one who had finally learned how to walk away without dragging chains of guilt behind her. I didn't need to save that house anymore. But if my experience could help someone else avoid the same toxic cycle, then maybe it was still worth something. On Saturday afternoon, I had just finished teaching a photography workshop at the community center and returned to my small apartment with a simple plan: make a cup of hot tea, play some soft music, and enjoy the quiet. But as I pulled into the parking lot, my eyes caught sight of a familiar silver minivan parked near the gate. 4 years ago, I had co-signed on that van with my father, Howard, when he could no longer afford it. Last year, I transferred full ownership to him, a final gesture of trust. And now it sat there, a bitter reminder of sacrifices that were never truly acknowledged. I stepped out of my car and slowly walked toward the building. Elaine and Howard stood waiting near the entrance. A bit behind them was Emily, clutching her handbag tightly, her eyes tense as if hiding something. I said nothing, just stood a few steps in front of them, arms crossed, waiting. My mother spoke first, her voice trembling slightly. Claire, I'm sorry we had to come all the way here, but things are getting out of control. My father followed, his voice lower, more tired than I'd ever heard it. The bank is coming next week to reassess the property. We know we made mistakes, but if we lose the house, your mom won't be able to take it. I looked him straight in the eyes, mine colder than ever. Then why, when you wrote the will, did you decide I wasn't worth mentioning? He lowered his head, fingers nervously tugging at the edge of his coat. We thought, you were doing fine. You've always been the strong one. Strong. I repeated, my lip curling slightly. And Emily. She gets to fail. She gets forgiven. Then she gets everything. I turned to face my sister. She pressed her lips together, saying nothing. No denial, no justification. My voice was quiet, but each word sliced through the air like a knife. I gave up my youth without conditions, and all I got in return was being forgotten, and the assumption that Claire would fix everything again. I shook my head, eyes still on my mother. I'm not that person anymore. Tears streamed down my mother's face. I didn't think it would get this bad. Can't you help just a little? A few months to stabilize things? I took a deep breath. It felt like a breeze passing through my chest, sweeping away the years of burden I had carried. I'm not saying no because I can't help. I'm saying no because if I do it again, you'll all keep thinking, nothing needs to change. That's when Emily finally spoke, her voice small and choked. I didn't think it would get so complicated. I just thought, we needed more time. I didn't think you'd walk away so fast. I looked at her for the first time in weeks. I didn't walk away fast. I warned you. I waited. I hoped. But our family chose to ignore all of it. So, is this really the end? My mother whispered, her tears still glistening at the corners of her eyes. I looked at her. The woman who used to sing me to sleep, who I had rushed to the ER cooked for after my dad retired, and for the first time I saw it all clearly, the line between blood and real love. I'm not the one who ended this, I said. My gaze fixed on her. It ended the moment you decided who was worthy of being included and who wasn't. No one said anything more. The late autumn wind howled through the bare branches, carrying with it a cold no jacket could block. I stepped up to the stoop, pulled out my keys, and unlocked the door. Before going inside, I turned and looked at them one last time. I hope you all find your way, but I'm no longer this family's lifeline. I looked at Emily, my voice slow and steady. If you truly want to grow up, then this is your chance. I've stepped off the merry-go-round. Now it's your turn. I stepped inside, and the door closed behind me. The sound of wind in the hallway slowly drowned out the echo of their footsteps as they walked away. I stood still in my small living room. The last rays of daylight stretched across the hardwood floor. No tears, no pain. Just a peace I once believed I would never know. I used to think that after that final confrontation, they would quietly retreat out of shame, out of realization. But I had been far too optimistic about the self-awareness of people who'd spent their entire lives depending on others. A week later, I got a message from Tessa, a close colleague of mine at the Art Center. Claire, are you on Facebook? You should check your mom's page. She's posting things that are just unbelievable. My hands trembled slightly as I typed Elaine Matthews into the search bar. Her profile popped up filled with emotional posts, flower photos, and inspirational quotes, but what left me frozen was one featured post, accompanied by a picture of the old house on Linden Avenue. It breaks our hearts that our own daughter turned her back on us, abandoning her aging ill parents in their time of need after everything we sacrificed for her, more than 80 shares. The comments flooded with sympathy, comfort, and judgment toward the ungrateful daughter. I bit my lip and scrolled further. Another post appeared, this time from my father, Howard Matthews. We used to believe Claire was a loving daughter, but when we needed her most, she walked away without a word. The house is about to be foreclosed, and she acts like nothing is happening. Then came Emily's post, laced with passive aggression. Some people are only kind when they're on top looking down, but when family asks them to step down and help, they go silent. I guess that's the new definition of strength these days. I gripped my phone tightly. Not angry, not shocked, just tired. When guilt-tripping failed, they turned to public shaming. But they'd forgotten one thing. I wasn't silent anymore. That evening, I opened my laptop, logged into the Facebook account I rarely used, and wrote a post. No backgrounds, no effects, just clear, straightforward words, no embellishment. My family is telling a one-sided story. So to be fair, here's the truth. From my side, I attached a photo of the will clearly naming Emily as the sole beneficiary. Next to it, images of mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance documents, all under my name. I included a screenshot of the last message from my mother asking me to transfer $2,900 to save the house. The post ended with a single line. My silence was an agreement. I was waiting for the right time to tell the truth, and that time is now. Less than 10 minutes later, the first comment appeared. Claire, did you really do all this? I can't believe it. You've always been the kindest person I know. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Then people began sharing the post. Some who knew, my parents spoke up. Many expressed shock. I always thought Emily lived pretty recklessly. Now things make sense. No one should be taken advantage of like that, especially not by their own family. The post spread quickly. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. It didn't aim to hurt anyone, but it didn't shy away either. 2 days later, my mother quietly deleted all her posts. My father deactivated his account. Emily changed her profile picture to a black and white flower, the vague kind of gesture she always used when things spiraled out of control. I didn't respond. I didn't write anything else. I just sat quietly in my small apartment listening to the rain tapping gently on the window. And for the first time, I felt justice tilt in my favor. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need them to bow their heads and admit they were wrong. I just needed them to stop. And it seemed finally they understood that I was no longer someone they could manipulate. One post, just one, was enough to end the years I'd been forced into silence. Now I was writing the next chapter, not on social media, but in real life. Since that day, I haven't received a single message from my mother, father, or Emily. Everything is quiet, like a lake forgotten after the storm, but it's not the silence of waiting. It's the silence of acceptance. They lost the one person who always came back even after being hurt. And me, I began to live. Every Monday morning, I returned to the Art Center to teach my first photography class to high school students. Their eyes light up when they hold a camera for the first time. The way they see the world through the lens makes me realize not everyone sees things the same way, and sometimes the only thing you need to do is choose a different perspective. In the evenings, I took a part-time video editing class, a skill I had once dreamed of but had to put aside for years because of family obligations. Now, no one needed me anymore. And for the first time in my life, that feeling brought me freedom. I began taking evening walks, peaceful and lighthearted. I baked on weekends, posting photos to Instagram without worrying about being labeled as fake. I made new friends in class, people who had no idea I was once the person holding up an entire family. And because of that, for the first time, I got to be myself, no burdens, no roles to play. While I was learning how to breathe freely somewhere else, the house at 327 Hazelwood Lane, the place that once defined my life, began to appear on real estate listings. An old friend, Brandon, now a real estate agent, messaged me, "Claire, your parents' house is up for sale, listed at $390,000, but no one's showing interest. Looks like they couldn't fix the roof or the old wiring." I wasn't surprised. There was no one left to flip the circuit breaker in the middle of the night, no one to replace the water heater or call the electrician just in time, no me. That house had stood for all those years because of me, and now it reflected the truth. Run down, hollow, no one left to hold it together. One afternoon, Mrs. Harmon, the elderly neighbor who still made a point to check in on me, called before hanging up. She said casually, "Oh, by the way, I heard Emily moved back in with your parents. I see her at the market a lot lately, but she doesn't look very happy." I looked up from my laptop, took a sip of still warm coffee. In the past, news like that would have made my heart sink with worry. But this time, I just shrugged slightly. Maybe what Emily needed most was to finally experience the uncertainty she had always assumed was someone else's problem. I didn't feel smug about their struggles. I just didn't want to carry the weight of choices that weren't mine anymore. For the first time in a decade, my savings account steadily grew. I booked a fall trip to Portland to photograph the changing leaves, something I once considered a luxury. I placed a deposit on a semi-professional camera, a dream I had always shelved as too indulgent. I learned how to take care of myself the way I once cared for an entire family that never once asked if I was tired. I also started writing again. Not social media posts trying to explain myself, but a blog about breaking free from toxic family dynamics. A few articles were widely shared. Many people messaged to thank me for putting into words what they'd never been able to say. One rainy afternoon while I was editing photos at my favorite cafe, my phone buzzed with a real estate notification. The price of the house at 327 Hazelwood had dropped another $30,000 the owners were desperate to sell. I clicked dark gray shingles, a rotting fence peeling door frames. The house that had once symbolized duty pressure and unspoken expectations now looked like nothing more than a block of concrete, waiting for someone to come save it. And that someone was no longer me. I tapped hide notification, closed my phone, and smiled. A soft smile like a breeze, but deeper than any sigh I had ever swallowed over the years. I didn't belong there anymore. One early winter afternoon, I walked around Brightwater Lake carrying my new camera. The sunset cast golden light through the bare trees, reflecting gently across the water. I stopped, lifted my camera, and took a shot. In the frame, a little boy running in the distance, his mother chasing behind, laughing and calling his name. In that moment, I understood some things aren't meant to be held onto, simply because they were never truly yours. I used to believe family was something you could never lose, that blood ties were unbreakable. But now I know what makes a family real isn't blood. It's respect and gratitude I gave everything hoping to be seen. In return, I was the name erased from the will. The one called too sensitive for refusing to shoulder more than what was ever mine to carry. I'm not angry anymore. Truly, I've let go 7. It's not exactly forgiveness, I simply let go. They still live in that old house, the one that had been listed for sale a 3rd time. I heard that whenever someone came to view it, Emily would try to act like a thoughtful, well-informed homeowner. But when asked about maintenance records or repair invoices, she could only offer a nervous smile. Because after all those years, no one ever taught her what needed to be done. I never went back, not once. There was a time when my mother, Elaine Matthews, sent me a handwritten letter sealed in that familiar blue envelope with handwriting I could recognize even in the dark. She wrote about sleepless nights not knowing where to start again, that my father, Howard, wasn't as strong as he used to be. At the end, she wrote, "I don't know how much time we have left to fix things, but if you're willing, I'm still here." I folded the letter, didn't tear it, but didn't respond either. I placed it in my desk drawer beneath undeveloped film rolls and unfinished drafts, things that needed time to understand and accept. I didn't hate them. I just no longer had the strength to keep sacrificing without being heard. I continued working, continued teaching, continued capturing and preserving moments through my camera. I even held a small exhibit at a friend's cafe showcasing photographs that told the story of my healing journey. Early mornings in the park. Golden sunlight pouring over quiet streets, the frail hands of an elderly woman holding a warm cup of tea, a lone flower resting on cracked concrete. After the exhibit, a middle-aged woman came up to me, shook my hand and said, "I don't know why, but your photos feel like they're speaking for people who've stayed silent for too long." I just smiled and said nothing. Because she was right. For so much of my life, I had lived in silence. To keep the peace, to fulfill the role of the good daughter, to hold on to hope that if I gave enough, I would finally receive the love I longed for. But now I had chosen a different kind of peace. Not the kind that comes from others' approval, but the kind that comes from finally choosing myself. I learned how to love myself without conditions, learned to say no without guilt, learned to let others take responsibility for their own choices, and above all, I learned the most important lesson: don't look back. They're still my family, on paper, in memory. But they're no longer at the center of my life. Decisions. I don't know what lies ahead, whether there will be a reunion or whether things will remain as they are. But it doesn't matter anymore, because now I understand family isn't just the people who share your name. Family is the people who value your presence, who don't treat your kindness as an obligation, who make you feel seen, chosen. And if none of them can do that, then that's okay too, because now I have a family me. I don't need to look anywhere else. My story isn't a tragedy. It's an awakening. I once believed that love and sacrifice would always be repaid. That family was unshakable. But the truth is, no one deserves to be diminished, not even by their own blood. I learned how to draw boundaries, to know when to walk away, and to choose myself without regret. Today I live with lightness, freedom, and peace. Not because they changed, but because I did. Here are people who spend a lifetime learning how to say no to their own family. And there are relationships that don't need to end in tears. But in clarity, Claire chose to walk away. Not because she stopped loving her family, but because she had learned that loving yourself is one of the deepest forms of love. She didn't need to be thanked. She just needed to be respected. And if no one in her family could offer that, then she would offer it to herself. Claire's story could be yours, mine, or anyone's. Anyone who has ever carried the weight of unspoken responsibilities. Sometimes letting go isn't about giving up. It's about starting over with true lightness, freedom, and peace. If this story touched you, please like the video to support us. Don't forget to share it with someone else who's learning how to love themselves. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss more heartfelt, thoughtful stories about family sacrifice and awakening. Thank you for listening until the very end. We'll see you again on another healing journey.